Good evening and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of June 8th, 2026. This meeting is being live streamed on the town's YouTube channel and also being held in chambers. I acknowledge that we are on Mi'kma'ki, ancestral land of the Mi'kmaq, and honor all those who care for it, including African Nova Scotian communities. Before we begin tonight, I just want to thank all of the condolences I received on behalf of my late mother who passed away a couple of days ago. My family is very appreciative of all of the support and kindness over the last few days. I call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. We do have quorum. We do have regrets from Councillor Baker and Councillor Hamilton tonight. Begin by asking if there are any conflict of interest issues before we begin. There being none, we will move on to approval of the agenda. There is one addition. Under closed session 8B, we're going to add 22-2A, sale of municipal properties. Any other changes? There being none, I would entertain a mover to approve, Deputy Mayor, and a seconder, Councillor Andrew. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, motion is carried. We have a set of minutes from the May 11th CAC meeting. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? There's none, so we will file those as presented. We now have a presentation from Alice, Community Climate Risk Assessment. So we'll welcome you up to present.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Alice J.B. Watt, and I'm the town's Climate Action Coordinator. Tonight, I'd like to give an overview of the climate risk assessment and adaptation planning work that's currently underway for the town. Before I discuss the project, I'd like to give a brief context of how this work is funded. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, through its Climate Ready Plans and Processes initiatives, supports communities and municipalities to plan for climate change actions. And it's through this funding that Clean Foundation successfully secured funding on behalf of the town of Kentville. Sorry, why is it going down? And that funding enabled the creation of this position, and it's the one that's supporting this project. With that context, I'd like now to talk about the project. I'd like to talk about why municipalities are conducting climate risk assessments. Why is it important for us, and why are we acting now? Climate change is not a far-fetched issue. It's no longer a far-fetched issue. We are experiencing it locally now. As you can see from the picture, this is Bedford. This happened in Bedford, and a similar event has occurred in Kentville before. So municipalities are taking precaution. They are conducting climate risk assessments so that they can avoid costly issues. As you can see, infrastructure is exposed. Obviously, if the roads are blocked, it impacts people getting around. So it cuts services. Also, this building here, maybe the basement is flooded, and it impacts people's livelihoods. So for that reason, municipalities are increasingly integrating climate change into their decision making so that they avoid expensive problems later. So they want to capture the event before it happens, and then they are able to plan for it instead of reacting to the event. So climate risk assessment, what is it? What are we doing when we say climate risk assessment? Am I pressing something? Okay, so climate risk assessment is simply identifying the climate hazards. So we ask ourselves, what hazards are likely to occur in Kentville? And if those hazards occur, what is exposed? Who is exposed? And if there are certain services or infrastructure that are exposed, what happens if they are impacted? Will our populations be impacted? Will services be impacted? Will there be losses? So we ask ourselves such questions. And looking at this diagram, I can say like a risk is an interaction of three components. We have vulnerabilities, we have hazards, and we have exposure. A heavy rainfall in itself is not a risk. It only becomes a risk when it intersects with a road, a public, probably like an infrastructure, a community space where people are impacted, where services are cut off, like it are impacted, and in fact infrastructure is impacted. So if there is no interaction, then there is no risk. But if that interaction occurs, then a risk occurs. So how does this process benefit us as a town or as a municipality? I'm going to use an example. So imagine that, let me use an example of this building. So imagine that we notice like a water stain on the roof, on the ceiling. And then someone comes and checks it. And through that inspection, we are told that the roof is failing. Something is failing in the roof and we need to like repair it. We need to carry out a repair. But then we have two options. We are given, option one is to repair it now. And option two, since it's not something that is urgent, we can wait. So we choose option two. We say like, okay, money is tight now, so we are not going to repair. After all, it's summer and nothing is gonna happen. So we wait. But then a storm occurs. And this major storm impacts our building and the roof caves in, and it floods all over. Electronics, equipment, everything that is in here is impacted. So now what happens is that it cuts off the services. We are not able to work. Like, it cuts off the services completely. It means that property that is in here is damaged, and we are not able to work as a municipality. So then that forces us to make a quick decision of repairing the damage as quickly, as fast as possible. So now it becomes an emergency thing. Before it was not an emergency, but now it becomes an emergency. So it means now we have to use more money. The cost goes up because it's an emergency though. So the cost now goes up. Assuming before it was like $5,000, now it is $50,000 because we need to repair it quickly for the services to resume to normal. So that is like reactive. We are reacting to the event. If we had done it before, we would have saved the cost. So what that tells us is that when you conduct a climate risk assessment, we protect our municipal assets. We also ensure that services run as normal. There are reliable transportation, utilities, everything runs as normal. It also reduces or avoids emergency repairs. Also, when you have a climate risk assessment in place, it's a proof that you have strategic actions, that you are prepared. And this is what donors love the most, funders love most. So it improves the opportunities for funding. So this is a project workflow. It shows how we are doing the climate risk assessment. And the first step is to review existing plans and studies and reports in the town. This gives us an understanding of the priorities and the investments of the town. It also helps us to know what hazards have occurred in the past and how did the town handle, or how is it planning to handle this. So the next one is that we use climate projections. This is simply using credible data sources like climatedata.ca which tells us what the weather might look like in the future. So once we have that, we are able to plan for the future. We also have staff and community engagement, spatial analysis, climate risk assessment, and finally, all of them feed into our adaptation planning. So I'd like to talk a bit about community engagement and collaboration in general. That is what we are doing now. That's the phase that we are doing right now. So not right now in this, but at the moment. It is one of the important phases of our process because technical analysis alone cannot give us the full picture. So we need community knowledge. Communities are the people who have experienced this as risks before. They have lived experiences. They know where it floods frequently. They know what infrastructure is struggling. They may even have solutions for some of these problems. So engaging them is important. It not only validates our data, but it also gives us more information on what we are doing. In this process, we are also targeting, or we are also engaging equity deserving groups because we want everyone's perceptions, like everyone's voice matters. So we are engaging everyone in the community, including the equity deserving groups. In terms of collaboration, we are collaborating as departments. Climate change is a cross-cutting issue, and no one department sees a whole picture, like a complete picture. So by coming together, like we're working as a team, we are able to have a clear or a complete picture of what is going on. Public Works Public Works knows more about infrastructure, planning, they know more about land use and what the town is planning. We also have Parks and Recreation, they know more about community spaces. And when we bring all these pieces of information together, we have a complete picture. And for this reason, we are collaborating with the Parks and Recreation Department in our community engagement as they are doing their 10-year recreation plan. So we made this decision because we want to reduce community fatigue. We don't want to go to the community several times asking the same questions. So we want to respect their time and ensure that we are collaborating, and because Parks and Recreation, whatever they are doing is related to the climate change. So collaboration is important. At the end of this project, our aim is to have identified priority climate risks, to have understood vulnerable assets and services, to have identified adaptation actions that we need to have, and that we need to have climate considerations integrated into decision making, and also we will be better positioned for future funding opportunities. Some of the deliverables include a climate risk map. This is simply a visual representation of where the risks are in the town. We will also have a climate risk registry, engagement summary reports, including the what we had reports. This is simply what the people are telling us. We will also have adaptation actions. So what next? What we are going to do next? Right now we are doing community engagement. And then we will also be doing spatial analysis concurrently with the community engagement. And starting October, we'll start conducting the risk assessment. And finally, because this project ends in March 2027, we will have, by 2027, we will have our adaptation actions in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll open the floor now to council if you have any questions based on this presentation. Yes. Oh. You're my conductor. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and it looks like you have a really good plan laid out. You'll keep us posted as you progress through each phase?
I will.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead. Oh, it was you that had a question? Okay. Let me make you hot. Hold on. Okay.
The flood risk mapping is going to be based on the baseline you use. Memory serves me correctly, it was 2.8 meters for 2050 and 3.4 for 2080 or something like that. Have you decided on what baseline data you're using for sea level rise, or are you doing both levels, or what's your plan for when you do the data for the flooding part of it?
For the data on the flooding, I will be using the study that was conducted by Dillon in 2023 as my main source of data because it's already been conducted. So I'll be referring to that data, and mostly in my project, it will be about engagement. And yes, we have, because we already have GIS maps in place. It's just simply pulling the data from there and making the maps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now move on to department reports, and we'll start with Kentville Police Service, and we will invite up Deputy Chief Reed.
Good evening, everyone. Chief Smith sends his regards. You should have in front of you or before you the April 2026 staff report to board. You notice at the top there will be some big changes that you'll notice, and I can assure you they're not errors. We'll kind of go through things. The two things of note that stick out right away is from this time, April 26 to April 25, our criminal code charges have more than doubled, and our calls for service have increased 50%. Some highlights, so we hosted an annual wellness symposium at Kings Tech campus that was well attended. One of our members, Sergeant Pick, is very involved with that process, and he did a fantastic job. Patrol-wise, you'll note that 38% of our calls were in the downtown core dealing with suspicious persons trespassing, well-being checks, and mental health type calls. As I previously stated, we've had 427 calls for service this month, which is a 50% increase in call volume as compared to this time last year. Proactive enforcement, as you can see, still a lot of checkpoints and proactive work are being done by our members, which resulted in 5 impaired driving related charges for April. Our members spent over 80 hours in training this month. Staff from Restorative Justice for the province of Nova Scotia came down and did a presentation to all of our members. And we had a member away at a phased interview course. Phased interview is just a different methodology, a different process for conducting subject interviews. Harlan was his normal busy self, lots of tickets, lots of warnings, assisted us in 10 calls for service. He's currently working on 5 bylaw investigations, and he was spent 143 hours in April on foot patrol. Community engagement sergeant was busy as well, doing some talks at schools. Our youth program is very busy right now. There was a presentation put on by the King's Senior Safety Society at the Waterville Fire Hall, and Sergeant McNeil was a part of that as well. Sergeant McNeil continues to assist shift with many calls for service throughout the day. Community Crisis Navigator was super busy again. Lots of referrals, lots of meetings, lots of client interactions. And there were 12 calls that we could see that were deferred to our Crisis Navigator that freed members up to attend to other matters. Our general investigative section is very busy. 9 active investigations, conducted 5 search warrants for the month. A major possession of child pornography file was investigated and charges were laid. Probably one of the worst files I've ever experienced. So it was good. It was good to have that work done on that file. Street crime remains busy, 8 active investigations, 9 search warrants were conducted by them. They assisted with the possession of child porn file. They assisted the RCMP in the illegal cannabis possession and distribution, and assisted in writing a production order which was granted for a fraud file totaling over $100,000. Our criminal intelligence service, again, super busy. They did a lot of site visits. They were also assisting the RCMP with Project Haze. And you can see the amount, the dollar amount in cash that was seized and the amount of cannabis that was seized. I think that's all for my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions as a result of that.
Thank you for that. I just have one question. The 427 calls in the month of April, you said 38% were downtown, so that's, say, 165 calls roughly. Are we tracking now how many of those would be connected to Open Arms, whether it's the site itself or guests of Open Arms? Perhaps they could be somewhere else downtown.
We are. Chief Smith has started to do that, and it's being tracked by known residents or people that use the service.
Okay,
So we're kind of, we're taking those 2 categories of calls.
okay,
And we're combining them.
okay,
I'm not sure when the chief plans to start
Okay.
providing that data, but
Okay.
it is being tracked
okay,
currently.
okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your report tonight. Just a question, and I sort of skipped you, or I missed it as you said it. The Community Crisis Navigator, you talked about a percentage of calls that she looked after or could be referred that alleviated some of your folks?
Right, so there was 12 calls for service that patrol members would have received. They were able to transfer those calls to Emmy, which resulted in Emmy dealing with the call and allowed our members to free up for other stuff.
And what would be the nature predominantly with those?
It could be anything. It could be low-level things like someone needs help getting a driver's license, someone needs help filling out a job application,
Okay.
all the way up to someone that's unhoused and is in a crisis of some sort.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your report. Under General Investigative Section, you talk of the youth internet safety presentation at KCA and for the school board as well. Can you give a little idea of what topics you covered at that presentation?
Sure, so what it is, it's focused mainly on the younger age group students, and it's mainly focused around internet safety. It's mainly focused about, sharing of intimate images, walk down that road and tell them what happens once an image is out there, or once something is out there, it's always out there. And I think that's the big thing that we try to drill into them a little bit, is that once something's out there, it's always out there. You can't pull it back in once you let it into the
Right.
web. It's out there.
That's a good thing.
So it's internet safety, just trying to keep the students safe while they're using the online.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you for the report. Under the occurrence stats, again, something that I'm not totally up to snuff on just yet, I'm trying. Under criminal code, disturbing the peace, the clearance rate is 22.2%. Is that low for a clearance rate?
So what you have to remember is that oftentimes what that clearance rate is, it's the clearance rate at the time the chief pulls the stats. So we could have other open files that haven't been cleared yet.
Okay, and that does, and because it says clearance by charge 0 doesn't mean that there weren't any charges that will come out of
Or
those.
charges that may be coming.
Yeah, okay, all
that's
right.
right.
Thank you. And I noticed that the shoplifting incidents, and people are telling me in town, shoplifting is on the rise in our stores downtown. Is there anything that we can do as a police service or whatever to assist those shopkeepers? Have you talked to them about safety within their stores or anything like that?
Yes, so that's a constant. So whenever the numbers are up, you're correct. But it's something that we're always trying to educate when we go to these sites. Oftentimes the surveillance cameras that they have are ancient and they don't capture a decent image anymore. So a lot of talks around upgrading current technology. You know, how do you keep your store safe? Are you keeping track of people that are coming in here that you know are stealing, but you just can't catch them? Have you had us serve the person with a Protection of Property Act notice? Just all those things.
And so those discussions are definitely happening. So-
Absolutely.
So that's great. And I was glad to see that surveillance cameras are now going up in some of our recreation areas, and that we're going to come up with a policy. So I think that's great. I
Yeah,
think that'll
no,
help a
it's
lot.
been very good, and I can tell you from experience already that they're very high quality. The images are really good.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to dovetail on what Councillor Maxwell said, I too am glad to see the surveillance cameras going up. I read through the guidelines, so there are quite a number of guidelines that are associated with having the surveillance cameras. Will there be any sort of additional training that will be required by some of your folks on how to interpret them or what they can
It's us.
use? Sorry? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we don't, just to clarify, we don't have a policy yet, correct? Yeah, that's just in there, I guess it's a guideline, we should probably have one. I'm looking at our policy man.
Yeah, it was just more of, in reference to the letter that had come out that Councillor Maxwell referred to as well from Marty, from the chief, advising us about that and that they were going in various locations in Kentville.
Right,
So,
so
yeah.
from a police-specific perspective, we've been using surveillance technology forever. It's when new members come on, we do it daily. So the policy will more be geared towards people within the town that are accessing that technology. For us, if we have a file, we're either notified by someone that's reviewing the footage and find something, and we come over and take a copy of the footage for our file. But the police ourselves won't be coming over and reviewing the footage.
Yeah, of course,
And
yeah.
doing that, yeah.
Okay.
So the policy will be more geared towards staff that are dealing with the footage itself.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Andrew.
Well, I won't ask my question because the deputy just answered my question. But that was the point, I guess, is this is town of Kentville. This is not Kentville Police.
That's correct.
Is doing this. And that was made clear at our commission meeting. And I guess the other thing would be that presumably we would have the policy before we begin to use these products.
There would need to be a policy before it's put in use, and I'm sure Director Langell can speak more on that.
Yeah, and I did appreciate that there was an example in the package that was great. So thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the plan is to put cameras in a couple of recreation buildings, similar to what we have at Town Hall. So there's no policy needed for that. That simply is our own internal buildings. We are required by ethical reasons to put a sign up that says you're being videoed. There's a camera in use, but we're not going to get into a technical policy like you see the one in West Hants unless you start putting them in Center Square, Memorial Park, and other places, which means you're going to have to hire extra staff to monitor, control, maintain all that stuff. So that's not our intention, because that becomes a very serious issue when you're monitoring the public's whereabouts 24/7 around Kentville, versus the plan as a rec department, just put them in a couple of our buildings that have been subject to vandalism. So we need to put signs up, but there wouldn't be any detailed policy at this point.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that with regard to my question, because that sample policy seemed like it was more applied far more broadly than our own.
Yeah, because that one suggested, I think the provincial ombudsman, I think it was ombudsman or the FOIPOP person or whatever, suggested you can only record during certain times and monitor during certain times, and we just wouldn't have the ability to have people turning cameras on and off and stuff on a regular basis or certain days of the week or certain times. That becomes very complex.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move on to Engineering and Public Works and invite Director Bell up.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council, CAO and Deputy Clerk. Start with the Water Commission as I typically do. A bit of an update on our water conservation. So in a conscious effort to reduce our water consumption, we have replaced 2 of our 3 water sample stations that are on the extremities of our system in different parts of town. Some of those have been running continuously for some time. And with a newer generation of samplers that is easier to winterize and less prone to failure. So the 3rd station will be replaced, has already been purchased and will be replaced in the next few weeks. And sticking with the water conservation theme, as I reported last month, we have installed our first automatic flushing station in an area prone to water clarity issues and are seeing both improved water quality, reduced operator callouts, and reduced water consumption as opposed to using manual hydrant flushing. Under sanitary sewer, there were no operational issues in May for our own sewer area service. I'll add this part that I didn't mention, but I'll say it with hopeful anticipation. But there's we're into early June and no operational issues or certainly sustained odor coming from the regional plant in New Minas. So optimistic that that's going to continue to perform better than it has in the last few years. So we are also working with our SCADA contractor, and that's SCADA is an acronym for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, I guess. So they're contractor / consultant to upgrade our system. It's getting to be a number of years old now, so it monitors and controls our water and wastewater system. So they'll be upgrading it to the latest versions of their hardware and software to help monitor our both water and sewer systems. On our traffic authority, spring road work, including line painting, patch paving, full street paving in areas, and other major capital works projects are scheduled to continue from now until late fall, and our department will provide updates on project start dates throughout our website and social media channels. However, motorists should anticipate travel disruptions throughout this busy construction season. Line painting is, for the most part, done. We have some more in-house crosswalks and parking stalls to do, but the majority of the line painting is done. And I do have a new fresh update as of today on the paving schedule that is set to start this week. We were notified late last week, in fact, that they would like to. We've added Aberdeen Street to our provincial co-funded paving project. So to finish off the downtown loop of that portion of Aberdeen between Paddy's and Tan Coffee. So the best way to do that is in one day, come in, mill it, pave it, paint it, and be out. So in order to do that, we'll close that road. So we hand-delivered notices to all the businesses last Friday, and Lindsay's had it all over socials today, letting folks know. So everybody knows that their sidewalks, in front of the businesses are open, but the street itself you'll have to drive around the outer loop of town to get around rather than come through Aberdeen. So they can do that all in one day. But that we'll close, finish up that piece of paving. And then while they're in town, I'll leave that to the end. I guess that's on the next page of my report about the rest of the paving. But under AT, the project, this is the last year of our AT 5 or 6 year funded AT project, and we have awarded the sidewalk replacement was within our approved budget. So the scope includes replacing the sidewalk on the north side of Main Street, starting at the crosswalk near the post office and working west towards just beyond Butts Auto with the goal of improving accessibility and pedestrian safety. So that's a new curb and sidewalk and all the accessible features that go along with that. So back to the provincial paving program. I'll skip to the sort of the meat of it all. We were successful, as I think I mentioned last month, on the 500,000 shared for $1 million of paving on main routes. And we assessed the sort of the worst of the worst, and the area that was chosen based on condition for a continuous stretch was the section of West Park Street, we'll call it, between Shiloh Drive and just west of Acadia Drive intersection. So that's been prioritized, and that will be, they'll be moving out there on Thursday right after they finish the paving on Aberdeen to start that milling process to remove the top 2 to 3 inches of pavement to get ready for a new surface. So that will take, roughly a week from the time they start, depending on weather and other factors. And as I mentioned before, they're scheduled to start this week on Wednesday. Patch paving, we are proceeding with the planned patching program. We have less main routes to patch this year because of the last year or two of full paving. So we'll work throughout the summer on various areas across town. Probably the next focus will be on the north part of Bridge Street from the lights going up the hill to the town line. That section is certainly need of patching, at least for this year, until we can get to a full repave in future years. Last couple things, Miller Avenue, we have a little tender out now we did the design in-house and has been posted on our page and the provincial procurement page, closing next Thursday, June 23rd. The scope of that work includes the full replacement of underground infrastructure, including water, sewer, and storm on that street, as well as new curb, pavement, and improved accessibility at the Park Street intersection. This work will enhance the overall performance, including a more reliable water supply for those homes on Miller Avenue, and improved stormwater management within the project area. And the last thing is just an update on the Donald D. Hiltz multi-year project. We're working with the consultant on the Phase 2 design, including the tank, and in the interim, the contractor is completing remaining works from last year related to the water system, and with some tie-ins to happen later this month. And I guess those are the highlights of my report.
Thank you, Director Bell. Just one quick question for me. No update regarding the water rates? Still
We have
waiting?
not heard, I don't
Okay.
believe, Director, no, we have
Okay.
not, looking to Wanda, but we have not heard from the RAB.
Okay.
I thought we would have by now, personally, but have not heard anything, other
Okay.
than we responded to their few questions after the hearing, but have heard nothing
Okay.
as of yet.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Bell? Councillor Maxwell.
Just wondering, as a traffic authority, that area by the Baptist Church parking lot, where people are merging out of the parking lot or into the parking lot, is still a problem for many residents. I'm thinking that people going into that Baptist Church parking lot would be best served by going around and coming up River Street and going in that way rather than crossing over. But people coming out, they're meeting people that are, cutting in across that solid line. Is there any signage that can accompany that so people get to know what that solid line is for?
Yeah.
They should know it, but
Yeah, it's hard
they're
to-
driving, but
Hard to have people retest it, I guess, but,
Yeah.
no, there's no easy or simple messaging, I don't think, Counselor, but, the merging traffic, I guess, is the only words we can have on signs. It is a bit unique, but thankfully haven't seen any incidents, and hope that stays the case. But I think folks that are familiar with it don't seem to have any issue. But obviously with busier traffic and unfamiliar tourist season stuff, it is different. You should go around the quarter until you get the broken line to go. Obviously, if you're going west towards Colebrook, but if you're trying to get in that church parking lot, that's the trickiest part.
Yeah.
And you're right, the
or
easiest.
if you're coming out.
The easiest
trying
way to get
over.
into it is honestly, like you suggested, from River Street. But I will see if there's any signs that can be installed to help
Yeah, if we can-
help notify at the very least that.
Yeah, that the
for
solid line
for the
means,
unknown. Yeah,
don't cross.
Some of that did not get repainted. We noticed they came in one evening, week before apple blossom, so a week and a half ago, or almost 2 weeks ago, they came in and painted, and they did miss a few things. I've got some deficiencies for the paint, the hired paint truck that comes in and does the long stretch of line painting, and they missed the corner there by Bridge onto Webster. We have that yellow sort of arc that keeps folks on the inside lane
Right.
from Wheelhouse onto Webster, and they didn't paint that. And we can do certainly some of that in-house with our own smaller striper, but I'll be giving them a list of things to come back. They did that so they could squeeze us in before apple blossom, but definitely missed a few things for line paint. But
Yeah, I realize, and there's more, it is even the same issue here, going up Main Street and turning onto Bridge Street. People don't know how to merge, and they just cross that line early or sit and wait until cars are gone through.
oh, just even coming around the corner
Even coming
by
around the
island.
corner, they don't know how to, they don't seem to know that solid line, you can keep driving and then you merge rather than,
It's not a roundabout.
yeah. Okay, just wondering if there was signage or anything.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and it sort of dovetails on what you asked about the water rates. So I know that they haven't been approved, they have not been approved yet. When was the hope that they would be approved? Was it July? Or
To go in effect in July, well,
That-
ideally.
sorry,
but
that's
we'd
what I
ha-
meant to
we'd
say,
have
to go in
have them-
effect.
Yeah, they were coming up on that we'll be doing a June read, but really June's read is mostly estimated for residential.
Right.
But second quarter is July 1st, so for them to go in effect July 1st, I'm not sure is realistic, looking at.
And
correction, but-
if they can't go into effect July 1st, which they probably won't, how does that impact?
It would be for quarter three, starting in September.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah. Which
think-
puts us.
I think the
resident-
directives.
sorry.
But also the rate study incorporates us recovering that, right? For one quarter, you have to.
Right, yeah. So we're already missing quarter one. you
Yeah.
know, So it was gonna be quarter two at best before they could be
Okay.
implemented. But
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Director.
thank you, good evening.
We'll now invite Director Matthews up with Finance.
If I could, just to close that last question to Director Bell, within the rate study, it does calculate us recovering that quarter, starting in year 3 of the study.
Okay.
So if we aren't able to implement by July 1st, presumably they will ask us for an adjustment on how we will recover. My plan would be to try and follow up with them this week, because we have not had any communication at all.
Okay.
And it was April 7th, so that kind of, thank you, I had that to give you an update on anyway, so that's great. Yeah. My report is fairly brief this evening, as we have been very much focused on the 25-26 audit. Our auditor did arrive last week and has been here for a couple of days, so that is moving right along. I have noted in the report that our debt was secured at a rate much less than what council approved. I know folks had some questions around that the last time, thinking that rate was rather high. So I thought it might be helpful to share that the rates do come in much lower than that cap that is put on by council. Our interim bills have been sent out. Those are 7.9 million. They were due May 29th. You can see from the grid that I've provided, we have $1,056,661 remaining as of May 29th. That represents 13.4%. And last year, we were at 8.2% remaining. Only 572,000, so a little, bit higher this year. However, I know from the activity coming in the doorway in the last few weeks, lots of people are still paying their bills. And the capital report that is attached, you will note that there is not a lot of expenditures to date. Most of most of the spending is in transportation, and that is equipment. As Director Bell noted, and as I'm sure my other colleagues would have noted in their reports, a lot of the procurement process is underway. We're either out to tender or tenders coming back, and we will have our senior leadership team update our progress report, and that'll be incorporated in the next package that will come to council. And that is it for my report this evening, unless there are specific questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Director Matthews? Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your report. You speak about the surplus is notably
Yes.
higher than projected.
Yes.
Can you give us a basic ballpark of how much the surplus might be? I know it's not final. And basically whether it came from increased revenues or whether it came from decreased expenditures.
Currently, the surplus for the town itself is mostly coming, there is significant increased revenue, mostly around transfer tax though, which has an offsetting expense. So it's mostly through savings and expenses. And in those areas, I noted a couple of items, just let me get my sheet here. Most areas, there have been, in Public Works, for example, we certainly had increased expenses in snow removal and other areas, but there were savings to offset those. Most areas other than those key ones in transportation, leadership was asked to try and make sure that they keep costs under control because we weren't sure where we were going to land at year end. Most people did. So they would have expenses, almost every cost center was under budget by 10,000, 15,000. So it's probably closer to 400,000 than the 100 and some that we had. That's where it looks like it's landing in around that ballpark. So one item for custody services, we haven't been billed, it's a new contract. So we are under there by 25,000. We have other accounts that are 5, but you have 10 or 20 accounts at 5 or 10,000, it adds up pretty fast. So not really big areas of savings, just lots of people trying to trim expenses as much as they can, and it just aggregated to a bigger amount.
Okay,
Does that answer your,
Yes,
that's
thank you.
helpful? Okay, great.
Perfect.
And certainly those details with a full analysis will come to Audit Finance Committee prior to coming here.
Okay, I don't see any other lights on. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
Welcome Director Shoup up with Planning and Development. Well, you were wrong too, so.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Some highlights for you tonight from our report. This has a mind of its own. Happy to announce that Sahar Qasim Shahi started with us today. She's our planner for a year, and she's going to be helping out with the plan review. So we got her introduced a little bit this morning. The second hire that we're looking at in the near future is our business development coordinator. We're just finalizing the arrangements with that person, and hopefully it will be starting third week of June. So, and we'll help organize that whole campaign with the business development and with the new committee that we'll be looking to form in the near future. Speaking of committees, the Planning Advisory Committee will be looking at the next two aspects of the provincial statements of interest in drinking water and infrastructure planning on Wednesday night. So we're looking forward to moving that forward as well. With respect to development applications, we had 9 development permits issued in the month of May with an approximate construction value of $310,000. On to planning applications and reports, and I'll just mention that the rezoning for 172 Main Street is going to public hearing on the 22nd of June. That's the next step in that process. And another application of note is the program-based housing application, which will be discussed at Planning Advisory Committee this week as well. Yeah, what else do we have here? So, from Lindsay in Economic Development, just follow up on the Apple Blossom Festival and the success, other than the weather that she notes here, for that particular weekend. And also a note that the VIC is fully up and running, for this season as well. We have, and I'm happy that you all got to meet Alice tonight in a formal setting, and she was able to do a presentation on some of her work. So we're going to include some of her updates as well going forward in this report. And as she mentioned, engagement mapping and some of the analysis of the data is something that she's looking forward to do in the near future. And she's fitting in very well with the team and with town staff in general. She's great to work with. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Director. Any questions for Director Shoup? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. And Director, this is not really a question that I'm asking. I'm asking the question, but I'm asking for just you to elaborate a little bit. A number of folks have reached out to me with regards to the 172 Main, in particular the public hearing on the 22nd of June. Can you just give like a brief outline of what that hearing looks like?
It'll be an opportunity for staff, for the applicant, and for the public to comment on the nature of the application, which is a rezoning from the current R2 to R3.
Yeah.
We recognize that it's being done without a specific development proposal. I understand that the public has some concerns over that as well, but we'll hear more details. And I've received some correspondence from individuals who will either be there, who can't be there that night, that I'll be reading their comments as well. So yeah, it should be an interesting evening to hear what they have to say about that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Director Langell with Parks and Recreation. We saved the best for last, right? This time.
This is my first time going last, so that's nice to hear. So, good evening, Mayor and Council. So for the month of May, I just wanted to touch on a couple highlights. So staff have solidified a number of grants for capital projects. We've also had some capital requests for funding denied just due to the nature of competition, or the grant has been cut by the province, other option. In regards to the Rexton flooring project, we awarded the project today, but just due to the proposals, they were quite significantly over the budget that we had. So we're going to go with the lower rec and the rec room to start this year, and then come back to council for next year for the upper rec. We also have a major renovation in town hall happening at the same time, so it might be nice to have a spare room around. So we will see council at the next capital request for the upper rec. Flowers will be up by the end of the week around town, so it will be very exciting for the residents when it gets out. The pool will be filled by the end of the week, and we still have our opening for July 1st, but we do want to open up a week earlier just with replacing of the pipes. And then finally, just some staffing changes. So Jordan Hebb will be starting as the active living coordinator. He's coming from the same role in Berwick, and he'll be joining us June 22nd. And then Lucas Van Dera, who is our HWA project coordinator, will be leaving the town the start of July for another opportunity. Any questions?
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Director.
Yep.
I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but I've had several people speak to me while I've been walking the marsh, and some of them environmental people. And they're concerned, they believe that dredging should be done, that that's closing in very rapidly. And if we don't dredge it, then it will just become a field again, like that was its original state. But we've got a lot of birds and wildlife there now with the water, but it is closing in. And so I was wondering if maybe we could have a discussion with Ducks Unlimited and the town recreation department to see and discuss maybe that issue, because a lot of people have been mentioning it to me. So.
Yeah, I think I would probably leave it to the professionals at Ducks Unlimited to provide a suggestion for us if that's the case coming from community. Our role with the town is just to maintain that trail system, and then Ducks Unlimited is responsible for the actual ponds there. So if that's a request from council, that's a conversation I can have with Ducks Unlimited.
Yeah, the concern is that one of the the people that were really involved with Ducks Unlimited has passed away.
Yeah, correct.
And so just reaching out might be a good idea to do that with them. Should I make a motion on that, or should we?
I don't think we need a motion for that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ducks Unlimited might have it.
All right, I don't see any other lights on. Thank you very much, Director. Thank you to the staff, directors, and everybody for presenting. We will now move on to new business. Item 6A, which is policy 112, whistleblowers. Do you want to get your whistle out and speak anything to this, or? Yeah.
Just at the recent Finance and Audit Committee meeting about a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're on. You need a whistle? You wouldn't have to have the mic.
At the recent Finance and Audit Committee meeting about a month ago, there was discussion around would it be beneficial to have a whistleblowers policy. We have a similar one now around fraud and irregularities, but not necessarily a whistleblower one. So they've asked for one. There's nothing that precipitated this. So there's nothing odd going on that someone said we needed because there's an issue. There's no issue that we're aware of or anything like that. It was just a protect or a preventative measure. So staff have just prepared this for discussion to go forward if council wishes to do it. This one's a little simpler to read compared to the other one, but this one also has a very clear process. The other one didn't have a process, just said here's what is expected or not expected, but this one actually has a process that people can follow and clearly understand if they do lay a complaint that there is protection, what the process will be to investigate, who will investigate, and how the information or the conclusions will be brought back at the conclusion of the investigation.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to read the recommendation that council approve policy 112 whistleblowers. Deputy Mayor Kroll and Councillor Savage as a seconder. Any discussion on this? There being none, we will call for the vote. Voting is now open. Oh.
I was intending to be here tonight.
Oh. We'll get you one.
Your taser.
Your taser. Laser, taser.
Taser.
And voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. The next recommendation is that council provide notice of the town of Kentville's withdrawal from Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board to all Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board partners pursuant to Section 6.2 of the Libraries Act, effective December 31st, 2027. Deputy Mayor and a seconder, Councillor Andrew. And I will open the floor to any discussion on this. Do you want to speak a little bit to it?
Just explain it.
Yeah.
So the way that works now is the town is party to an agreement with all the other towns and municipalities in the valley to operate Annapolis Valley Regional Library. As part of that, each of those parties are required to provide a base amount every year. And in addition, the towns that have libraries in their community are required to fully fund the operations of the building for those buildings. So it is in a legal agreement that we're bound by. Unfortunately, the recent decision by the library board has put us in a position where if we do not take this action, if we do not give notice, we have to give at least 12 months notice. If we do not give notice, then we will continue to pay. It's right now about $43,000 is this portion of it. We would continue to pay that portion towards the library board, who would then use that money to fund other libraries while they close ours. And so I think we need to send a clear message to the library board that if they were planning on using our money going forward, if they close our library, it's not going to be the case. I know the public has been doing a great job at advocating for the library services. And I know there are some meetings planned for this week with some provincial officials to see if there's some opportunity to change that decision. But in the interim, staff are just recommending we take this action now. Doesn't prevent us if the change is made, if it gets reversed or there's some other changes made, doesn't prevent us from withdrawing this motion or taking it back in the future. But if we don't put the motion on the floor and don't approve it, then And if it comes January, then we'd be another 2 years because we have to give at least a year's notice. So we're just trying to be proactive in making sure the motion is put out there. We notify the other partners, because some of the other partners are losing their libraries as well. We want them to know that they're probably going to have to take the same action as well. But to put some pressure on the library board. But also, if that's the case, then we know we have some money that we can use towards library services if we have to provide some type of service ourselves directly. So.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, CAO. That gives it, puts it in better context for me. So my question is, as a town, do we have the ability to run the library in absentia of being part of the AVRL? Because for me, just for me as a councillor, it's imperative that it not close, our Kentville Library, and that we move forward and do what we need to do as a council to move it forward so that there is no closure. I just don't know not the optics, but the mechanics of that. If we can operate a library but not be part of that board.
Right. So we can, if we did wish to operate our own library, we could do that. There's nothing that prevents us from doing that. It's just a time-consuming thing to get set up. We weren't expecting our library to close. And so if we wish to rent a building,
right,
we would have to employ some staff. We would have to buy books or have some type of system of book loaning.
Because they would own that.
They would own that. They have an interlibrary loan system that I assume we wouldn't have access to because we're not part of that public library system.
Right.
But I don't know the answer to that. I assume we're not, but I don't know that.
Okay.
So it would take some time to set that up. We'd have to acquire 8 or 10 computers and Wi-Fi and all that stuff to access that. We'd have to renovate a space somewhere. So it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital cost, which could be amortized over a period of years.
Yeah.
So it's not a substantial cost. Yeah. We'd have to lease a building, of course, which is what we're doing now. The biggest new cost would be staffing, because right now we're paying $42,000, but it would cost us substantially more to operate it from a staffing perspective. In addition to trying to buy the books and everything else, or the electronic versions of books and stuff. That's the expensive part. But I think everybody realized or recognized the importance of library services in their community, and so staff are working now on some options for what that might look like going forward. We just need a little more time, and we need some clarity from the province as far as if they're actually going to do something different, or if they're going to stick with the decision, or the library board's going to stick with the decision. Then we will have to take some action in the next few months to decide what that looks like, and then put plans in place for 2027.
Just one other question. So if the province comes through with additional bridge funding like they had done in the previous years, then that potentially could buy us some time for an ensuing year to sort some of these things out where our timelines are so short right now. July 20th, I think, is the close date.
Yeah.
Yes. If we were expecting it's a 1 year reprieve, then yes, it would be wise for us to do all the work now and be prepared in 2027 to assume responsibility and look after it.
Right.
What you don't want to have happen is them to say they're going to give you funding for a year.
Yeah.
But we don't know if that's the end of it, or if they're going to continue to fund it year by year.
Right.
Because then we would spend a lot of time on doing stuff, trying to negotiate leases or agreements and trying to do all the capital costing and things and the operating costing stuff, and for naught if they're going to continue to operate.
Okay. Okay.
Councillor Andrew.
Well, once again, my question kind of got answered, but it sounds like there's some pending discussions, which are we can be hopeful about those things, but it sounds like it's not impossible to have a library as a town that runs according to a different model.
Yeah, I think I saw Canning operates a library, which isn't part of the system, so they would operate a library outside of the system. So they must have volunteers or some staff. They must have some books, some technology. But obviously, I'm sure it's a smaller library. I've been in Canning many times, but I don't remember where the library is. So there are options. I'm sure there's some others around Atlantic Canada too that we can look at for models and see how they're functioning.
I mean, it would be smaller. I think the expectation for a town of the size of Kentville would be to have a full functioning library. And so, well, I appreciate that idea. I think, when you're a single library and you can't network with the other ones. There's a lot of pieces there that, we'd be providing a service, but we'd be losing something bigger, I think. So I do have a meeting lined up with Minister Laura tomorrow, so hopefully there'll be some changes there. And I will speak that when I heard last Monday, I was devastated and shocked though too, because there's been very little dialogue between the library board and the town, with me as the mayor of Kentville, and consequently with all of you. We do have a representative who's not here tonight who sits on the library board. And just for the record, there was never any communication between that councillor and myself over the last several months. So, there's a lot of pieces there. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns there. And I understand that, they required more funding from the province. I was blindsided last Monday, as we all were. So we'll see what comes of tomorrow. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I just think I want to weigh in here. July seems to be a very strange date when we're providing funding. So has funding that we've already provided for this year, are we still paying? Or does, is that the date, the 20th, we've finished all our costs and they're going to close it? Or are we still paying money into a library system that we're not able to operate in town anymore?
We'd still have to pay the $42,000 up until, and that's what this recommendation is, to pay it up until 2027, and then we would no longer pay it.
So why would we pay up to 2027 with no service?
We have to give them a year's notice too, as part
Did
of
they
this
give us
agreement.
an advance notice?
Didn't give me notice, so I can only speak for myself.
So I'm thinking that this is, it's a very strange situation to happen with absolutely no consultation, that we're just going to give you a date and now your library is closed. And, consultation is huge in these types of things. And to not come to the town of Kentville and say, look, we're weighing closing your library maybe, and, and Wolfell's in there, could you come up with a proposal or something? And nothing, no word, nothing, just we're going to close Kentville, which is the largest library user, most users in AVRL, and also the largest populated area. And you're going to take the largest populated area with the greatest number of users of the library system and shut it? That, to me, there's something more behind that than just finances. There's got to be something else there, and I would like to call on the library board to be transparent and to put out the vote and to, explain the rationale, because anything that's come from the library board that I've heard, there is no rationale to closing the library in Kentville, especially without consultation, and coming in and saying, we're thinking maybe we want more parking. Is there some way you can solve that problem? Or nothing. Total silence. And I'm just really upset and disappointed with the entire board, every single member on that board. And I think they need to be accountable, and they need to be held accountable by the public, and they should all be asked, what was your rationale? How did you vote? What was your rationale? And I think the community wants that. I want that. And all this secrecy and hiding behind jargon, it just doesn't wash for me, and it's not washing for our public. And another thing we need to remember is that Margaret Atwood put many dollars into that library when it was renovated and turned into a library. And I'm sure that she's going to be told exactly what has happened and where her money is sitting. And I don't think that that's going to go down very well with Margaret Atwood or other people in our community, and who also raised money for that library under Friends of Kentville. So I think that we need more transparency. I think this is a good idea, of course, financially protecting ourselves. But I think we should call on the province, and we should call on the library board for total transparency and ask how decisions were made. And I'm prepared to make a motion for us to send letters to both the AVRL and the province of Nova Scotia and explain our situation here in Kentville, and ask for transparency and investigation as to how this occurred and how this happened.
I just want to clarify, in January, there was a meeting at the County of Kings with all the funding partners, and there was a presentation there. Deputy Mayor Cole and I attended with CAO McNeil, and they presented their financial situation and asked all the units to give a 50% bump for the next 2 years, and we did. At that meeting, I also asked, and that was the last meeting I've had with them or any dealings with the library board. And at that meeting, one of the questions I asked was, have you considered closing any of your branches? And the answer I received that day was no, because it wouldn't really make a mark on their situation. It wouldn't really help their financial situation. We left there, and then, so to hear last Monday, that they were gonna close 5 of them, particularly Kentville, I mean, that was a shocker. So I don't know if your motion's needed right now. We're in one right now. But we'll see what comes from the meeting with Minister Lord tomorrow, and Minister Ritzy's meeting with the library board this week, I believe.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that meetings are going to take place. I'm just concerned with the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability by the Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board. And there's all kinds of rumors floating around out there. Nobody's told me 100% how the decision was made, and that's why I want to know, rather than repeat rumors that are going around the community. I think they should be transparent and say, this is how we made the decision to close these 5 libraries. And the people that voted for that need to step up and say how they voted. And if that's just community asking those 5 members each, that's fine, because I certainly will be asking some people, how did you vote and why did you vote the way you did? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Andrew.
I might just ask, so the, location, that was one of the things that was in several discussions, people said, well, maybe it's a factor that we don't own our building. Some units perhaps own their buildings, and I don't know which ones, but my understanding is that's not an issue, like that we could potentially have that location that the community invested a lot in for the foreseeable future. So that's not a factor.
For the library board, you mean?
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
I don't know what their metrics were, but I mean,
the space is still there, available. A new agreement could be drawn.
Oh, yeah, no, it was still, in fact, they were ready to, the landlord was agreeable to a continuation of the lease, so and we and the County of Kings pay the upkeep of it, so that really shouldn't have been a factor in there.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what metrics they use. I asked that question and I haven't got the answer to them, where they came to that conclusion, so. All right, I guess I don't see any more lights on, so we will open the vote. Voting is open. And voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. We move on to 6C, which is bylaw 207, street encroachment bylaw. Do you want to speak to that, CAO, a little? Or I guess Director Shoup will come up and.
You're pleased to know that I don't have a presentation for this, but just a few quick notes. So we went down the path of looking to an encroachment bylaw because currently there's no way to facilitate or to consider encroachments on municipal streets or sidewalks, with one exception, which I'll talk about. But the idea is to try to make it possible for certain accessibility improvements, access stairs, ramps, sidewalk cafes, which is the exception, and other similar encroachments. Even for the renovations to this building, we would need to have something in place to help with that as well. So what we've done is we've integrated the sidewalk cafe policy into this new document to put all those things into play. And we've also passed this through the IDEA committee, so they've had an opportunity to give some recommendations on some of the things we missed on the first try. So we certainly appreciate that effort from the committee, and come up with the version that you see in front of you, or it was in your package. And happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
All right, let's put the motion on the floor and then we will we'll go from there. So the recommendation is that Council Advisory Committee recommend, council give first reading to bylaw 207, street encroachments. Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Savage as a seconder. Any discussion on this? I guess there's no discussion, so we will open the floor to the vote. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to public comments. We'll invite members of the public up to the podium. Just state your name and which item you're speaking to from the agenda. I think we can guess, but just in case.
No secret. So Jillian York from the town of Kentville, and I'm speaking to the library on your agenda this evening. I want to first thank the members of council and mayor who have been in attendance at the public demonstrations. Your support behind the libraries goes a long way, and your constituents see that. I do want to take an opportunity to really drive home the point that I'm sure you're well aware of, but I would like stated in the record anyway, that the libraries are fundamentally a provincial responsibility. And the downloading, and again, you're aware of this, the downloading of provincial responsibilities onto municipalities has increased year over year, and it means that our communities are inequitably accessed across the province for things like paving roads, recreation services, as well as mental health supports, and now things like libraries. When we talk about the closures, that is obviously devastating, and there will be a time, I think, for people to dive deeper into how the decisions were made. But I would hope, and Mayor Zabin, you spoke to it as well, that at your meeting tomorrow with Minister Lord, that you take the opportunity to really drive home the fact that their 71% is a vital 71%, and the buying power of their dollar in 2019 when they made their last increase in their funding is not the same as the buying power of a dollar today in 2026, and that municipalities cannot constantly be left holding the bag when the province doesn't step up to their own responsibilities. And Mayor Sabin, you did say it as well, that a community library like the one that it is in Canning is great if that's all you have access to, but it does not provide you access to the shared services. So things like Same Page, the same books that are in the library system, getting a book that's only available in Cape Breton, you would not be able to get in our library here. It also means that you don't have access to the community programming that would also take place. So things like chess clubs and Lego clubs and all the things that come with funding typically would be on the back, again, of your constituents at a different level and often in volunteer hours. And when we fill the gaps of the province's downloading onto the backs of volunteers, it means that we are putting an undue pressure on your constituents to fill in the gaps that the province is responsible for. We fund what we value. This province does not seem to value community spaces and third spaces or its constituents who are out on your streets every day telling them that this is something that they desperately want to keep in their communities. So I would urge you at your meeting tomorrow, but also in your conversations as you go around, that the funding that the province has is obligated to pay under a service agreement is, while it is true that they did not cut funding, it is disingenuous to imply that they are offering and providing funding that is adequate. They have not had an increase since 2019. Obviously, we've gone through a global pandemic and some financial crises as an entire country. We have the worst inflation rates across the country at 4.3%. The dollar that they are providing in their 71% is not the same as the dollar that they provided in 2019, and is disingenuous to imply otherwise. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir at this point. I feel like perhaps the Kentville Town Council gets it, but I would like to at least put that on the record, and to again thank you for your continued engagement by participating in the protests and participating in the community activities that are happening, and by stating your opinions here is really helpful. So I do want to thank you for your continued support of the Kentville Library, but I would implore you to put pressure on the province because this is their problem to solve and not municipalities' problems to solve, and they need to step up to the plate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Karen Padavani. I'm a resident of Kentville, and again, I am here speaking on the matter of the library. What I would say is that although Monday's message was a shock, it was not really a surprise. We have been hearing this cry for some time. I would say that the library board has been putting bandage upon bandage upon bandage on the issue over many years. The bandages have come off, and I'd like to know that we're not going to focus on the bandage, but look at where the wound who's caused the wound. And I think Jillian spoke to that, and I won't repeat any of that. I would mostly like to speak to, I think, the motion that was just approved to go forward to council. And that gives me great concern that we consider something for which we do not know the impact. What is the impact to the residents of Kentville if the town withdraws all funding and participation in a regional board? Does that mean I am no longer able to go to Berwick or Wolfville and borrow a book? And that's a question. And I'm just concerned about a motion being passed without the impact being known. Along that line, if I understand, you need to give a year's notice, which would, wherever you gave it, would come to December 31st. Why are we making that motion within a week of some very shocking news, which we have not fully had time to process? Why not make that motion in September or October? That would still give you you would be within the legislative window. So I'm thinking, what else did I want to say? I would, I'm going to urge you to reconsider that when council meets, not knowing what the impact is going to be on our citizenry. And I am really concerned that looking at the idea of a standalone library in this community, so much would be lost, so much would be lost. And I fear that it would be akin to those little library boxes that some citizens have at the end of their driveway on steroids. Libraries are so much more than a repository of a finite number of books that go in and out. So, but I do appreciate the passion about this issue around the table as well. And I would hope that instead of focusing on the board, that we look where the problem, the root of this problem, and we put our energy in addressing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Any other members of the public who wish to speak tonight? Okay, I don't see anybody else. We are have a closed session that we must enter, so I would take a motion to enter a closed session. Councillor Andrew and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Crowell. All those in favor, please signify by raising. Those opposed, motion is carried.